Aussies, Americans, we need to do what New Zealand has just done. They've pulled off something that is truly remarkable. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm Electric Viking. Great to see you. My name's Sam Evans. I'm coming to you from Melbourne in Australia. Thank you for tuning in. It's great to have an example like this. New Zealand really is setting it's more than an example. This is truly quite an incredible story. In 2021, 4% of all cars sold in New Zealand were electric. Only 4%. Somehow they went from 4% to an entirely different number in 12 months. It blows my mind what has just happened in New Zealand. Now, what is equally awesome is that more than 80% of all energy produced or used in New Zealand is renewable. Within the next few years, they'll hit 100%. More than 80%. I mean, this is such a brilliant story, and it's such an example to Australia and our government, what we should be doing. I mean, look at how much land New Zealand has, right? Look how much resources they have. It's very small in comparison to Australia, and yet they've done this quickly. And guess what? They're reaping the benefits. David Waterworth wrote a brilliant article for Clean Technica. He said that back in August, Clean Technica broke the news that New Zealand, a tiny nation in the Pacific, had reached a penetration rate of 12% vehicle sales being plug-in vehicles. Now, New Zealand has bumped that up to 30%. They were at 4% last year, right? Now, I believe they're closer to 20% fully electric. Those other 10% I think are plug-in hybrids. A bit over 20%, but they've gone from 4% to more than 20% in 12 months. It's amazing. Now, the thing is, those numbers don't tell the true story. They don't tell the true story at all. In fact, the true story is much better than what I just told you. Much of the reaction in August was centered around one-off factors, and many felt that this was a blip and the situation would simply return to normal. It was just a fad. EVs were just a fad. That's what they all say, isn't it? Just a fad. One of the reasons cited was that the Tesla Model Y and the BYD Atto 3 had just landed. And since they accounted for 70% of EV sales, it was likely that the wave would subside. Well, the blip, it wasn't a blip. It's getting bigger. And the wave, it's getting much higher. It looks like New Zealand has achieved 30% plug-in penetration for the first time. Figures released by the New Zealand Department of Transport indicate that of the almost 100,000 vehicles sold in 2022, 20% were fully electric vehicles, 10% were plug-in hybrids, and 50% were conventional hybrids, lacking a plug. So that means that, diesel and petrol cars basically have pretty much nearly no market share at all in New Zealand within the space of 12 months. Now, of course, that will change drastically. I mean, those hybrids will convert into fully electric cars. Those plug-in hybrids will convert into fully electric cars. It's just a matter of time. But considering how quickly this has all happened, I believe that will happen very, very quickly. New Zealand is perfectly suited for the electric car revolution. Many countries, in fact, are perfectly suited for it. The naysayers say they're not. But for example, in New Zealand, the average commute per day is 22 kilometres, or about 14 miles. Guess what? In Australia, it's actually not much more than that. More than 80% of electricity in New Zealand comes from renewable sources, and that number is only increasing. In addition, more than 85% of New Zealand homes have off-street parking, making home charging easy. In fact, truthfully, you don't even need to set up a home charger. You can just charge with your own plug. Yeah, it takes longer. But if you're only driving 22 kilometers a day, you really don't need anything else. I mean, even if you drove 100 kilometers a day, you still probably wouldn't need anything else. So here's the thing. This is why this helps so much. And I've mentioned this on the channel on a number of occasions. Many, many countries like New Zealand have a deficit in their trade balance. For example, New Zealand sells milk and a lot of meat. They sell other things as well, but they're their two primary exports. But they buy cars and fossil fuels and bring them back to New Zealand. Obviously, buying fossil fuels is massively negative against their terms of trade. Plus, it's negative for everyone living there. Less dependence on fossil fuels means a better balance of trade, obviously. Most electricity is produced by hydro in New Zealand. That's a win-win for the New Zealand economy and, of course, for the New Zealand people and, well, for the entire planet. The market, says Clean Technica, is only going to get tighter for fossil fuel vehicles as New Zealand introduced its clean car standard on January the 1st. And this shows you policy does work. Not only does rebate similar to what is applied in Europe exist and apply to car purchases, but car manufacturers are fined for cars that exceed CO2 emission standards. And, well, guess what? Pretty much all gasoline and diesel cars do if they're purely gasoline and diesel powered, which they should be. It absolutely makes sense. The finance sector is getting in on the action by offering low interest loans for EV purchases. This is not the only country this is happening, by the way. It's even happening in Australia. You can get a lower interest loan from some companies, some banks, if you buy an EV. Now, the reason for that is they see an EV as having a better long-term residual resale value than a gas-powered vehicle. By design, the Clean Car Standard is for the car industry rather than buyers. It encourages importers to meet stringent carbon dioxide emissions targets through either a pay-as-you-go plan more suited to those not importing many vehicles at a time, or a fleet average scheme, the main importers in New Zealand. If the carbon emissions average of an importer's fleet ends up over the limit, it will get fined, while fleets under the limit get credits that can be used as a buffer for impending fines or traded to other brands. Now, obviously, Tesla just made a couple of $1 billion in 2022 that no one seems to be talking about, but they made a lot of money in 2022 from these kinds of credits. They will continue to do so. And the reason being, companies like General Motors, 2% of their vehicle sales sold in the US in 2022 were electric. All right. So same things apply in Europe, same things apply in China. Although EVs have a much higher penetration rate than they do in the US, you still do have to pay unless you want to be fined, and the fines are even bigger. In New Zealand, the difference between it and the clean car discount is that the standard is designed to encourage the industry to bring cleaner cars into the country, while the discount aims to encourage people to actually buy them. November figures show that the Ford Ranger was the best-selling car with 1,527 vehicles delivered. Closely followed, though, not far off, by the Tesla Model Y in second place with 1,099 deliveries. In sixth place was the BYD Atto 3. The Atto 3's strong month comes as the Chinese brand continues to grow its footprint in New Zealand. They've got a great distributor in New Zealand. They really know what they're doing. They communicate with their customers extremely well, and they're going to do incredibly well in the country of New Zealand. 4 new BYD sites in New Plymouth, Botany Town Centre, Lower Hutt and Dunedin are set to open before the end of the year. And I think New Zealand, probably you'll find BYD and Tesla will be 2 of the top 5 best-selling car manufacturers in the country now, just permanently. That'll just be the standard, the status quo. It won't be a blip. It'll be the norm. More than likely, in fact, they'll take over Toyota and Ford's position because Toyota and Ford just don't make many EVs, to be honest. Overall, 15,621 new vehicles were registered in November, representing a 4.3% drop versus last year. And the popularity of the Tesla Model Y continues to come at the expense of the Model 3, with the former outnumbering the latter 4-1 in November. But of course, a lot of pent-up demand, a lot of people waiting for that car. If they'd have come out at the same time, then we could maybe have a fairer comment on that. But I think it's fair to say a lot of people they want a practical car. They want a bigger car. That's what the Model Y is. Having accumulated 3,358 registrations year to date, the Model Y is on target to be New Zealand's most popular EV this year. And the prices have just gone down in New Zealand. There's now some discounts there for that. So you're basically getting a discount from Tesla. Then you're getting the rebate from the government. Makes them actually fairly affordable. I'm not saying they're cheap, but they're definitely much more affordable than what they used to be. In this new world, there may be unintended consequences, one pundit says. The growth of electric vehicles is the bold new trend. It will also be interesting to watch the value of used gasoline-powered cars as this trend develops. And I've been warning people on this. Many people have been warning others. Your gasoline-powered car, if you buy a new one today, It's a pretty significant risk. Unless you buy a cheap one, I mean, that's probably not too big of a deal. Buy an expensive one, buy a luxury vehicle, I think you'll find that resale value will tank within the next few years. 2023 is going to be an incredible year for EVs in New Zealand, but not just for New Zealand. It's going to be an incredible year for EVs all over the world. Production rates are going up enormously. It won't be long before the most popular vehicles in Australia, in New Zealand, in the US and Canada, which are pickup trucks, or as we like to call them here in Australia, utes, will be electrified. And whoever's making them in electric models for sale and making lots of them, they're going to win those markets. Stay tuned to the channel and I'll let you know who I think that's going to be. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.